Hi, good morning. Welcome to Coffee Chats. Coffee Chats features leaders in the creative community sharing their personal and professional experiences to inspire others pursuing careers in art. My name is Christina. I'm the graphic designer at Big Medium. This week, I am talking with Alex and Andrew Massey, co-founders and the creatives behind Swng Productions. Swng's mission is to produce high-end creative content in collaboration with their clients. You may recognize some of Swng's work. Last year, in partnership with Big Medium, they produced 8 artist interviews for the West and East Austin studio tours. We'll talk a little bit more about that today, but first, we're going to start just getting some learning about Alex and Andrew.
Thanks for having us on, Christina. We really appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about your history, just about you and your kind of how Swng came to be.
Swng was an awesome opportunity for Alex and I to continue to collaborate after college and create a community of really awesome creators and collaborators. I went to school here at UT and got my degree in photojournalism, and Alex got her degree in dance and religion at TCU, and we just wanted to workshop a way to combine our passions into storytelling and into helping people make good work.
So as Andrew mentioned, I went to TCU and studied modern dance and religion. And as Andrew also mentioned, we've been collaborating together for a long time. I remember the first dance for film that we did together when he was still at UT Austin. So I've always had an interest in joining different disciplines together. I really love collaborating with people that are in completely different fields. After college, I received a Fulbright research grant to study the intersection of dance and religious environmentalism in India, and that was incredible. And that experience and my background with dance and dance being a way to see collaboration, it bled into how we started this company and are some of the ways that I've brought those interests into film and production. So it's been a blast to do that with Andrew and to get to make art and to collaborate with new people and learn. I love humans, so it's really been fun.
Yeah, I really love in y'all's work that you have created videos and content for all types of creative disciplines. And I guess, could you talk a little bit about how photography and dance led you there?
Yeah, so I'm going to start just a little bit. It's funny because when we started Swng, we were convinced that photo was going to be the primary thing that we were going to do. So we had invested so much of our initial startup funds into photography gear. And Andrew is an incredible photographer. I don't want to speak for him, but I would say it's definitely a big part of his heart and who he is as an artist, and has shaped so much of what's brought to the company in terms of vision and quality. So photography was his base more so than video, I would say, but always had done video. And then we go back to like middle school of him, or maybe high school of Andrew photographing my high school dance performances. And then all throughout college, we just always wanted to make art together. We have a lot of fun together. And so those were the two things that we kind of brought together. And then, yeah.
I love that, and I think so our audience knows Alex and Andrew are siblings working together in this company. I think one thing our artists would really love to hear is like that process of forming Swng, because I know you guys had a lot of care and consideration when starting your business, and you guys made this from scratch. So if you could share just kind of like what that was like and any like recommendations or advice of like when you're forming something, I think that would be really interesting for people to hear.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's so much that like, we've learned through trial by fire. And I think that, like Alex said, we had intentions to be mainly a photography company when we originally started, and I think it just kind of highlights your willingness to want to make changes as you start. I think that we spend so much time, especially in those development days and before something actually launches, like you're spending all of this time thinking that you're making something perfect. And when you release it to the world, it's going to be perfect and there's going to be no flaws. And especially in a business sense, like that couldn't usually be farther from the case. It's usually like the second that you launch, you start realizing all of the things that you missed along the way. And I think for us, that period of time was like very stressful, but also really valuable. And I think that it just highlights a few things for me. I think one, you have to not be very prideful about your ideas and your vision. I think that you can have an overarching goal, but like how you get to that final destination is always going to be a series of twists and turns. I think another thing that's really important for people is to focus, especially in the beginning, on making things that people actually want to purchase and getting feedback from people who are interested in making purchasing decisions. It is often that we find ourselves in our own little feedback loops of, being like, oh, this is like not good, or, oh, this is great. And, there's a lot of opportunity to kind of lead yourself down a path without communicating to others. And I think that's really important to kind of see what you're making, especially as you're starting out, and adapting that to be able to, reflect what people actually want. And then I guess the last thing is, establishing community is, incredibly important, especially in our industries. I think having a group of peers that you respect and work with and, seek advice from is going to give you a lot of insight as to how other people are operating in the same space. So we often say that like we don't really like look at any of our competitors as that. They're often, friends and collaborators. And, we've had instances where we'll bid on projects against people and then we'll end up hiring them for crew roles based on, what the project is and based on our relationship with those people. So it's not so much about trying to hit home runs. It's more so about just, trying to get on base, like making things that actually work and then continuing to tool and refine as you continue to progress.
Well, and that's one thing I've always appreciated about Swing and you, both of you, my personal and professional times working with y'all. You're super open-minded, and I think that's a great aspect to keep in mind as a creative pursuing your own independent business. And like you just said, community is so important. You never know, or just like the learning opportunities that come up with that.
Totally. And I think one other thing
behind it.
And I think one other thing that is really important, like with the community aspect, is from the beginning, something that Alex is a huge proponent of was doing charity work and doing nonprofit work. And, that's how we ended up working together, through Big Medium. But every year we donate a content retainer to nonprofits in Austin. And we're very mindful about how we go about selecting those nonprofits that we work with, and then really making sure that what we're providing them is going to actually positively impact their business. And the biggest value add to doing that and working with different organizations is getting to meet just a bunch of wonderful people who are doing things for the right reasons. And the networking that comes out of that as well is such a huge positive for anyone's business that it's such a clear no-brainer to me. And I think that if you're in a new community or if you're trying to go in a new career path, finding people who are actively invested in supporting positive causes will sincerely impact your ability to network in this community.
Well, and I greatly admire you guys for having that be a core in your mission and a part of what you do. And the work you produced for East and West was all really beautiful and great opportunity for the artist. What if we segue? I know you guys recently were kind of, I guess, showing your audience some recent work. I know you've we're working on an animation, and I think that kind of showcases the multidisciplinary and kind of how you guys are so willing to jump in different, or not jump in different directions, but move in the direction that makes the most sense. Do you want to kind of talk about the recent animation you guys have been working on?
Yeah, sure. So this is a really awesome project that we collaborated with Reed Hildebrand. He used to live here in Austin, but now he lives in Minnesota. And we've actually had this done for almost a year, and we were getting ready to roll this out as like a big marketing campaign prior to COVID. And when everything kind of like shifted, we've just been kind of keeping this in our back pocket until we are able to give it the proper marketing run that it deserves. But we're still showing it to, people, and we're so proud of it. It's a really fun piece that showcases our personality and kind of what we do for our clients.
You're a small business owner with big marketing goals. You need to acquire new customers, recruit top talent, and increase brand awareness. But the marketing world has transformed in recent years. In a sea of information, your content must be thumb-stopping. Research shows 72% of customers would rather learn about a product or service by watching a video. Online videos and social media continue to command more attention every year. You know you need to invest in high-quality content, but how can you feel confident in your decision with so many different options and opinions? You need a trustworthy team who can bring your vision to life. That's where Swng comes in. Swng Productions is a full-service creative agency based in Austin, Texas. Whether you need a new marketing campaign to fit an existing brand, or you're starting with a clean slate, we can create engaging content that fits your needs. From photography, videos, and creative consultation, to designing logos and websites, our end-to-end creative team can guide you through the entire process. First, we collaborate with you to fully understand your brand and vision. Based on detailed industry research, we determine the best content to visually represent your business. Next, we calculate your return on investment for each creative service by inputting our quote and your internal sales goals. You can breathe easy knowing that your content maximizes the budget and will bring value to your business for years to come. Now for the fun part. What starts as your idea, we turn into an inspiration board. With all the details set, our talented team moves forward with production. After a few revision sessions and final approval, your content is ready to shine. Be excited to boldly share your company with the world. Go to swingproductions.com and learn more about our creative process with our free downloadable guides. Let's swing.
That was so fun. Thank you for sharing. That provided a lot of good insight into y'all's process. Alex, could you talk a little bit more about your process and what you've developed to allow productions to be as stress-free as possible?
We love to learn about people, and we serve a bunch of different size businesses. So we work with sole proprietors, like yoga teachers as an example, or dance companies, like smaller organizations, medium-sized businesses, and then larger businesses. So after we learn more about a client and figure out where they are on the spectrum, we really dive into their vision. And prior to even making any production choices, we really want to understand them and their business goals. And I think that that's something that freelancers or other businesses and artists can take into their mind's eye when they're thinking about creating work or pitching and selling their product. And thinking about the client and really understanding their business as a whole and where they want to go into the future, it allows us to provide a piece of content that hopefully not only has a long shelf life, but really serves the purpose of whatever their needs are. There was a Super Bowl commercial that we did that Andrew and Corey were the main leads on, but the client expressed a lot of joy with the product and with the process, and that's super important to us. And we keep having repeat clients because of that. And they really trust the process because they know that we're gonna take them all the way through and come up with a solution that best fits them. And then the creative side we can take care of and bring in all the amazing people that we work with to make whatever, size product they need or project they need.
And I think to just like piggyback off of that, you know, if you have a good relationship with someone who's purchasing your art, being transparent about how you come to your value and how you perceive the value of that product and how they're planning on utilizing it is really important for people to feel comfortable with giving you money. And I think that that's something that really is often overlooked. It's like, my art is my art. You either buy it or you leave it. And it's like, it doesn't really work that way. And there's other things in like our industry, for example, that I think are illuminating for other sectors of art, which is, you know, going like, if you want to accomplish X, it's going to take Y. And and a good example of that with that Super Bowl commercial was the discussion of whether or not we wanted a second camera team and if we wanted a steady camera operator. And for somebody who doesn't know what that is, it's basically the guy that runs on the field at the end of a touchdown, where you're able to get that really cool dynamic motion of, you know, someone moving through a space. And clearly outlining to the client, like, this is how much this particular thing costs, and it's over your original budget, but because we're able to double the amount of coverage and then also provide these dynamic types of shots, it will be able to make X for your product. And when the client like fully understood that, they were like, well, that's an obvious decision that we definitely want to make. And I think that that showcases being not afraid to tell somebody how much something actually costs, you know, and telling them how much time it's going to take and what the value of that is. And then also explaining what that does for the final product. You know, I think if someone's approaching a portrait painter and they're like, hey, you know, I'd really love, you know, I love your style, and I know that you normally do, you know, 2 foot by 3 foot, you know, portraits, but I really want, you know, a 6 foot by 8 foot painting and the exact same style. You know, that's not a good choice for somebody if they're not used to painting big, you know? And I think that that's like the same type of environment where you're like, you know, is this really the commission that I want to sign myself up for? Is this the project long term that I really want to do because someone's pulling me out of my abilities? Or is this something where I can just clearly communicate like, oh, I can easily go up in size to be able to accommodate what you're looking for, but there's going to be these associated cost facts because I need to, you know, I always stretch my own canvases, or whatever the reasoning is for your own individual sauce to be able to make the product that you want to create for your ideal consumer. Is it's all about that transparency, even with yourself, you know?
I was going to say, just being transparent with your own process and like learning about yourself so you can best work with others.
Absolutely. And I love thinking about clarity with your own personal process, because I think being transparent with oneself and giving oneself the opportunity to be clear and to like check in and process is a way with the client, with the contractor, with your own self to come back to, what is it that I have established? Am I being real? Am I diving deep and asking the hard questions? And I really just like can't emphasize enough for us as a business and for us as individual artists how valuable it's been to have a landing place that is not ethereal and that's like very grounded in the world that we live in, and having that process and reflecting on it. It's key, and it gives you reciprocity with yourself, and that carries out into whatever it is that one is doing and how that works with the client and with the people you're collaborating with.
So speaking of process, could we kind of talk about the process of how you guys selected Big Medium as your nonprofit to work with, and the process of the artist interviews, and kind of just some background on that?
Yeah, for sure. This would have been my 6th year doing East Austin Studio Tour, and it would have been my 3rd year doing East and West. And I've met so many incredible people, and I've had so many wonderful experiences with artists in this city, and it's such a underrepresented portion of our culture that it really became clear to me that it was a really wonderful organization to work with. And you know, when we originally spoke before we talked to everyone at Big Medium, you know, one of the things that was really interesting to me about this project was not having it be so organizationally focused and have it be more about the people who benefit from the organization existing itself. And I think that was such a clear indicator, because I think I could, to just go into the overview of what the project was, what we ended up deciding to do was do 8 artist profiles. And they were mirrored of the inspiration of the Netflix show Chef's Table. So really thinking about like going through somebody's, you know, practice throughout one day, and figuring out what is important to them about why, about their craft and why they do what they do. And then also the significance of East and West Austin Studio Tour to them and what it means to them to participate in a event that is different than an art show. You know, I think there's something truly unique about East and West Austin Studio Tour, which is the interactivity, the connection with the artists themselves, and then also having it not be so formal. You know, so much of art can be a little bit stiff, and East is quite the opposite of that. So building these pieces to kind of talk next to each other, to where you could look at somebody like Evan Voiles, and then you could look at somebody like Stella Alisi, and they're just so different. Like they're just wildly different people and artists and processes, and every aspect of their lives is so just starkly different. But in the ways of which they connect and show and build community and are interactive of the Austin art scene, they're staples and icons, you know? And I think that there's this very clear weaving of those two things in that central thread. So it really clearly became like an obvious win for us as a project. And then when we talked to everyone at Big Medium, you know, they were so supportive of the idea and not, you know, utilizing resources to, you know, create something that wasn't going to give back to the artists and be something that's a little bit more timeless and a little bit more about the actual festival itself instead of a year or a date.
Because you guys really got an in-depth view, going to these houses, spending all day with these different artists. Do we want to share some video clips with our audience?
Yeah, for sure. Let's just show a few, and then I think we can just kind of talk about some of them.
Sounds like a plan.
In this room, when I pick up this brush, I'm the creator. I am God, and that is my universe. This is Zulu's world. Whatever comes out of my head is what emerges from these canvases. This will be my second year in the West Austin Studio Tour. I was introduced to Big Medium and the Studios Tours by another artist that just said, get your work ready, let's get you in. You directly in contact with the people the whole time, not just a reception. It was refreshing. Having people just walk up to me and talk to me about my art, it seemed so much more genuine. If you ask me, why do I paint? I can wholeheartedly say simply because it makes me happy.
I want the work to be able to answer questions for people. I want them to find joy with the work. It's work that's meant to be lived with. So it's meant for the home, meant to be enjoyed over a long period of time. Big Medium, they really created a lot of the Austin visual art scene. Before they were here and made that studio tour, it wasn't really like a scene. The best part about the studio tour is that you get to go into somebody's personal space and see their work habits and how it's made. And it's not a formal viewing. You get to see it in process, hopefully. Some people are scared to walk into somebody's studio space. I myself have been scared to walk into an unknown studio space, but I've found that I've always walked away feeling thankful that I did, because I met somebody I would never have met and learned something and seen a way of living that I would never have seen.
It's very methodical, and it forces you to have some patience. And the sound of every single step is very enjoyable. Printmaking makes me happy. It's just the greatest thing in the world. Big Medium is a really wonderful advocate for the arts in Austin. With East Austin Studio Tour, they make it so approachable. You get to see artist studios and workspaces. It really brings together our community, both artists and people who want to participate in the arts. It's only when I pull the print off the woodcut that I actually see for the first time truly what the work is that I have created. It's always a really big surprise. I would call that a successful print.
I feel like Big Medium has highlighted the art community. Like on the map, we are physically highlighting where artists are producing art. Kind of what feels like an honor being the designer for Big Medium is like you're given access to 600 people's artwork. How do you equally showcase 600 different pieces into a catalog that still makes each person look their best? Design's definitely a labor of love. You're creating all of these systems that people don't even realize they're interacting with. My whole life I've never really stuck with one medium. I've always been whatever is right for what's in my head. It makes me really anxious when you're pulling off the tape because it either worked or it didn't. I think I like the mystery behind it. It's almost like a lesson in teaching myself about accepting the flaws in the work. These videos I feel like were such a wonderful example of you feel like you really get to understand these people and this process. What was that like filming them and behind the scenes for y'all?
It was really special. I think everyone, I know that I feel probably the same with you. We all felt very invested in making these as honest and authentic and real to the person's individual art exploration as we went along. And I think that it was just such a fun experience to just collaborate with each artist and watching their level of engagement or curiosity or stress about what was going on in each moment, and then working them into having these really fun conversations while they were working, Yeah. The creative choice of interviewing people while they're working is it was just really fun. And I think to turn the question back to the interviewer, what were some of the things that really stuck out to you? I mean, all of us just in your house with your, giant Visqueen plastic, retainer around you while you're airbrushing, it's just a really going into your house was so fun and so different than working in Annalise's studio, What was it like for you to just be oh my goodness, these are I guess what I do is not that normal after all.
I feel like as an artist, it's scary to show that process, and you only want people to see this finished, perfect thing. And that's the beauty of the tour is you're being vulnerable and you're willing to show people something unfinished. And I think that was kind of a big takeaway that I got, and how there's still beauty in your unfinished work, and reminding yourself, for me, it was almost a reminder to open up more about the process and to open up to vulnerability. And people will they'll comfort you, and it was a surprise. I know, it was for me just this, it was okay to allow everybody into this space that feels really private. And I think that's my favorite part of the tour is you're getting these really beautiful, intimate moments with people that are unexpected.
There's something really interesting about people showing off a completed product in comparison to being vulnerable about their process, you know. And I find that, as particularly in the art community at large, there is this weird thing about being shy and then being like almost overly confident and then being let down, and like this like weird cyclical process of, you know, not being transparent about not being perfect. And we bottle up our personality into our work, and your personality is what makes the work, you know, and striving to show the individuality of who you are as a human being and being okay with that is a much taller ask, I think, than somebody just being like, here's what I've made, is it pretty? You know,
how do you navigate that with your own work, or like even with, or like, because so much of, I feel like, of what you're trying to do is help showcase other people's work, and especially with the studio tour visits, is like, how do you navigate that? How do you navigate showcasing an artist's vulnerability?
I think it just really comes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is just transparency and respect. I respect each artist and their willingness to participate in something that's that vulnerable. You know, we spent, you know, 8 hours in these people's spaces and workshopping the outcome for each person, and workshopping the essence of the message that they wanted to convey was very important to me. You know, it's not my intention to create something that is harsh or, you know, showing somebody in a negative light, but I also think it's really important to be honest and authentic about how that person perceives themselves and how they perceive their art. So just really being focused on intentionality and making sure that what our shared goals are being, you know, workshopped through during that day is what led to those products, you know.
And I feel like it creates the storytelling in itself is creating this relationship, and which then kind of connecting you to this person. And then I feel like with that collection of videos, and as well as with the tour, it's kind of like beyond that, creating this also deeper relationship with our city and our community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, like, East is unique because of what you just said, right? East is unique, and Big Medium is unique because it's actually embedded in the experience of what makes Austin unique within itself, and it's not highfalutin, and it's not overly stuffy, you know. It's just a really relaxed vibe, and I think it's refreshing for art in general to not have it be so serious.
This kind of like middle ground of it's not in this white box room, and you're getting like this, you're going into someone's house or studio, so you're getting that middle process, which is so rare and so usually disconnected from the audience and the art. Let's wrap this up with a few questions that we have. The first one, I want to film my art. How would you recommend that?
So I think there's a few things that people can do to, you know, film their art. And I guess it's based on their objective. So if they're interested in filming the process of creating their art, I'd highly recommend looking into time-lapse photography. And you can even do time-lapse photography with your iPhone, you know?
Yeah.
So just setting up your phone throughout the day, or setting up your camera throughout the day as you're making your art, and being diligent to not miss a step is a wonderful way to do that. Another thing that's a super useful thing that you could do to film your art is to just buy a microphone, and like a small microphone, and you know, a cheap LED video panel with a camera or a phone and, you know, with a tripod, filming yourself talking about your art, and then, you know, getting a couple of shots of the art itself on the wall. And just something that simple, right? I think video can be much easier than people make it out to be. And it really just comes down to like the A roll, which is what we're currently doing, which is talking in front of cameras, and then B roll, which is the stuff that you put on the background of the talking. So if someone just gets some shots of themselves talking into a camera and they talk about the art and then they show the art and they put that over top of the video, that's a really quick and easy way to make a 30-second video and, you know, showcase what you're making and then show a couple of shots of it and, you know, end with a call to action.
I've got another question. This is for Alex. What was it like to transition to a different medium from your dance background to now a more film background?
Well, I love this question because I think it's something that a lot of us will dance with in our life. Oh, that was a bad pun, but it happened. It was on accident. Was that a pun? Is that a pun? Anyways, and moving on. So it's a process. I think that it can happen a lot of different ways. Like there can be a reason to shift your practice or your discipline because of circumstances that are outside of your control, which can make it hard, or which I suggest to everyone, especially dancers. I think that if it's within your bandwidth and within your heart to have more than one discipline in your pocket, it's just invaluable. Like everything that I've learned in dance has carried over to film, and everything that I've learned about film production and photography has impacted how I see dance, how I watch dance, how I communicate with dance.
I agree that, or I've experienced a similar, just kind of, it's surprising you'll venture down one creative path and not realize how much it'll influence your work and process later. We have time for one last question for both of you. What is something I can do to get more involved in the Austin film community?
I think there's a few things, and I think this probably applies to a lot more than just the film community. So the first thing is look at Facebook groups. There are a bunch of Facebook groups here in Austin: Austin Filmmakers, Austin Digital Jobs, Austin area models and photographers. There's a lot of Austin-based Facebook groups that are specific to our industry. And then there's also national and international groups that are useful to join. And then you can also search within those groups by location, and that will help you target a group of people that you might be interested in working with. And you know, I think the Facebook part of it is really important. And then I think the second part is actual outreach and being transparent and clear about desires and objectives from your outreach. And what I mean by that is, you know, reaching out to ad agencies or production companies or people that you admire in this industry and having a reason to engage and communicate with them and have an offering or a value add to why that person would want to collaborate with you. I think that if you present value to what that person is trying to accomplish, they're going to consider wanting to bring you on. And you know, other than that, I think it's about just creating and showing your work and being vulnerable and, you know, asking for feedback. I think all of those things will lead you to people caring about your success and advocating for it.
That was super valuable, Andrew. Thank you so much. And it's so true that there is just a community ready, and you kind of just have to put yourself out there too and reach out. And
no one's just gonna find you. You know? No one, you're not just gonna like, the idea, especially in the 21st century, of like your art by itself being good enough to be noticed is just laughable, you know? And I think that, you know, that brutal reality of just like acknowledging that like you have to present to yourself and be in the world is it makes the rest of it a lot less hard.
Yeah, and if there's a world you want to enter, be that film, be that art, or whatever kind of specific sub-world is, you have to, go about your research and be vulnerable, and both you reaching out and have people reaching out to you. And I so appreciate the time today with y'all and talking with y'all, and I very much appreciate how much you foster community and growing that, and all of the contractors you work with, and the value you have with that has been great. Thank you guys. This has been a great conversation.